You've connected to Cisco Unplugged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 84 of Cisco Unplugged, your show for all things wireless. I'm Dan Klamert, your host, and I'm back here with Al Dumdei. How are you doing, Al?
Hey, good. Doing great, man. It's it's spring, weather's nice. You can go outside. It's not too hot yet, but
Yes,
not so cold. And
yes,
Cisco Live's about here, right? It's
exactly.
just
We've made it big time, right?
yeah. So I mean, one of the probably the biggest news, even bigger than the keynote, right, is that
Yes,
Unplugged is going to do a session at, at Live. But the other thing
taking
that's
this
kind of fun is
taking this little show to the big stage.
that's right. The thing that's kind of fun is, I mean, there's all kinds of, this time of year now, there's all kinds of new developments that we can't talk about with anybody, right? I mean, because they
Yes,
want to save all the thunder for Cisco Live.
exactly.
But I will say my favorite one, and this, you're going to have to come to Cisco Live to know what this is. My favorite new kind of internal project is named Mad Max.
Yes,
So you can
yes. That's a
you
that's a
can get
good
an
name.
idea of
That's a good
what's going
name.
on in the development cycles with that right now.
That's a fun one. Yeah, so stay tuned. Come to the sessions live. Come to live or tune in. Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of surprises, we for our session our session ID is BRKEWN 1012 or 1012 for the Titans of Wireless, and we've got some great guests lined up. We've got Matt Schwartz, Josh Sir. Jim Florwick, Simone, Jerome Henry, but we also have a special guest, right?
Can't tell who it is. Top secret.
Exactly, a surprise, surprise guest.
That's right.
So
So
excited for that too. But yeah, look us up if you're out there. Please attend our session. We'd love to have you, not only check it out but ask any questions. We like during our show, typically, via Slido, we will be taking questions live there in the session. So really looking forward to that.
yeah, that it'll be fun. It'll be interactive. And these guys are all just they're all authors, they're all
Yes.
distinguished speakers and just they're a lot of fun to talk with. So
Pros.
it'll
Yeah.
be even if we don't talk technical, we'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I posted the session and the advertisement on LinkedIn, and one of the customers came back and said, you got to attend this session. Dan Clamer's going to be there. And I'm like, well, to be clear, I am not one of the titans of wireless. Like,
Exactly.
I appreciate your excitement, but there's, to your point, there's a much bigger billing here than
Yeah.
you, than maybe Al, but not me.
Yeah. No, I'm there
So.
just like today. I'm there to learn. So
Yeah, yeah. Me too. Yeah. So we are lucky to have Ed back here, Ed Novak back on the show, our technical marketing engineer leading this Cisco workflows, wireless workflows in the BE. So how are you doing today, Ed? Welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm super excited to be back here talking about workflows again.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So today we're going to be going from basically, I posted online like zero to hero or from thin air to full automation.
mhm.
We're going to be building wireless workflows from scratch. So I'm really excited for that. We are taking your questions. We do have Slido up and running. So, you can always look at the QR code on the screen, or you can click the link under the YouTube channel. Join the Slido there. Submit your questions. We'll be asking those or answering those live during the session here. And so get those in YouTube. Again, encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We've you'll be notified when we do go live. And we do have a schedule out there of upcoming sessions. That's the first link literally below the title bar on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is you probably already found us. You're here watching, but youtube.com/@getunplugged. So please go out there, subscribe, like the videos, and click the little notification bell next to the subscribe button, so you will be notified when we do go live with new great content here. So I think that's all the reminders here. So I'm excited to get into this here. Let's get unplugged and
Yeah.
talk more about creating wireless workflows.
Well,
Well,
thanks.
and just Ed, thanks for joining today. Not everybody knows Ed, so and I know we've had him on last time, but it's really Ed getting
Sure.
Ed's time to come on the show today. Ed is a super busy guy,
Yes.
very, very knowledgeable. And this is one of Cisco's premier tools now, right? So this is not like something nobody else knows. This we're leading with this, right? And so I just before the show, we had a chance to kind of talk, and Ed was kind of helping me debug some stuff, right? It's just, I mean, he's super good at this. So if you have questions, you probably won't get this opportunity to like pick his brain. Now's a good time to do that, right? So feel
Yeah.
free to to ask in Slido.
And that's a good point, Al. I assume that people have seen the previous episode. So we did have Ed on episode 83, and we have also talked about workflows a little bit more too with Ansible on episode 82. And then I think we talked a little bit more about automation on episode 69 as well. So I didn't want to assume any of that. Thanks for the reminder, Al.
Yeah, no, all good. I'm just happy to have Ed here. So
Yeah, I'm
Likewise.
really interested in hearing about people's use cases. So if they have a challenge out there looking to automate, let us know about that. I'd love to hear about that. So I'd like to start off today with a quick overview of what Cisco Workflows is for those who didn't join us last time, but I'll keep this very short because we're going to get to this live demonstration. So Cisco Workflows, cloud-hosted network automation, now natively inside the Meraki dashboard, but it's not just for automation of Meraki. You can automate Meraki, Catalyst Center, Catalyst SD-WAN, ICE, Umbrella, Thousand Eyes, all the different Cisco platforms, as well as third-party integrations as well. So things like ServiceNow, Jira, Netbox, Infoblox. Anything with a REST interface, very easy to automate with Cisco Workflows. And while last week we showed the pre-built automations, pulling those directly out of the Workflows Exchange, our catalog of pre-built automations, today we're going to start from scratch using our simple low no-code drag and drop editor. I'm going to manually build a workflow, and I'm actually going to show you the new stuff coming out right now, AI-generated workflows. I'll describe an intent to the AI assistant, and it's going to build a workflow for me. So it's all about making APIs simple and easy to use to eliminate those repetitive manual tasks.
Oh,
Ed, you got muted.
somehow you got muted, Ed. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah. Technical difficulties. This is where the
Okay,
color
hopefully
There we go.
Hopefully you can hear me now.
Now we can. Yep. We can
I don't
see
know.
what's going on. I couldn't read lips. I'm not skilled at that.
You're 80-something episodes in this and you can't read lips yet? Come on.
I know.
Exactly.
I'm a slow learner, Ed. You haven't
I
seen
was
that.
following perfectly, Ed, so don't worry. I forgot even noticed the sound went off. No,
So here we are inside of my Meraki dashboard under the automation menu in my workspace. So, oops, cancel that again. I'm going to create a new workflow here, and this is from a customer use case that came up to me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Their challenge was they need to reboot. Oh, if I can type today. Goodness. Reboot all APs in a network. So let me give this a good name here. So reboot all APs in network. Goodness. I think it's Monday or something like that.
I'm glad
I
I'm
can't
not
type.
the only one that has it.
A lot of pressure when people are watching. I know.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Good thing is I can always fix my typos here. So here I've gone into my workspace. So again, left-hand side over here, my palette of activities. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not just for Meraki. I see Meraki in my list here, but lots of other things here, Cisco domains as well as non-Cisco domains. And if I go all the way down to the bottom right here on the left-hand side, anything with a REST interface, I can grab this HTTP request and utilize that. The center here, this is my canvas. I'll be dragging activities out onto it shortly, but let's start on the right-hand side over here in the properties window. So here at the top, I can see my name and my description, and these are important to the AI assistant. If I'm going to ask the AI assistant to run a workflow, it's going to look at the name and description provided. But I'm going to start going down a little further here to something called a target. This is the resource that we're going to be operating against for this particular workflow. I'm going to actually specify the exact target I want to run. I could have it be selected upon start, but just for speeding things up today, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say I'm going to use a Meraki endpoint, and then by default, I have a current organization available to me. So anybody who has access to workflows, they'll have a Meraki current organization target created for them automatically. If you don't have that, or you're going to operate against a different Meraki organization than where your workflows environment is hosted, you do have to grab your Meraki API key, manually add that into the targets area under keys, and then create your target for a new Meraki organization. But that can then automate against different organizations from inside of my current organization.
So normally I have to set up the targets, but you're saying with this new capability, that's already set up for me. I don't even have to set
Yeah,
up my...
this was just added a couple weeks ago. This Meraki current organization target was just added a couple weeks ago to eliminate that
Nice.
challenge. If you only have a single organization, great. It's built for you automatically. If you are automating against multiple organizations, you do still have to create a separate target, because that's going to be associated with the API key you're going to utilize for that activity.
Okay.
The other thing we need to do here is add a variable. So I'm going to add actually a couple of variables. I'm going to come here. The first thing, the scope. I'm going to define 2 input variables to start with here. And my first one I'm going to do is going to be an organization ID. And I normally declare a global organization ID, but for this demonstration today, I'm going to create a workflow local input one. So I'm just going to give it a default value here, but I can override that at runtime if I need to. I'm providing a default value because it helps speed things up as I'm doing my testing as I go through. I'm going to declare a second input variable. And this one is actually going to be the network name. Goodness, and I'm having all kinds of trouble today.
Did you spell something on your keyboard?
A default variable. Here, oops, let me get that correct too. Demo, there it is. So here, again, providing a default value here, but I can also override at workflow start. So I need to reboot all the access points in the Meraki network. And I'm starting here with an organization ID and a network name. But I know that I'm going to need the network ID for any API call I'm going to make to my Meraki APIs. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to do a search here for a get network by name or ID. And this is actually a pre-built default workflow available for me. And I know it exists in there, but I'm just going to see that I did my search up top, so I have to hunt for it, click and drag it out onto my canvas right here. And then I see on the right-hand side, a couple things are requiring some input. So the first thing here is the organization name or ID needs to be defined. So I'm going to click on my variable reference icon. I'm going to go over here to my workflow where I declared an input variable. And right here, I have my organization ID.
So let me pause you just for a second, Ed. So right now, I want to kind of walk through sort of what you're thinking, right? So when you first start, did you kind of, how did you know which variables? You just kind of mapped it out in your mind and said, okay, I want to reboot AP, so I know I'm going to need to know this. Is that kind of what you did to sort of start?
Well, actually, the first thing I start with, depending upon the challenge I'm given, if I'm not familiar with the APIs, for example, I'll start with the API documentation, do my research, and identify which API calls I need to make, and then I can go in there and then do my search. And I know that by default here we have 100% Meraki API coverage, so that's no challenge. I'm doing things with Catalyst Center, for example. We have about 60% API coverage currently built out. But the great thing about workflows is we don't have the activity pre-built for you over here in our long list of activities. And I'm going to pick on Catalyst Center. There's a number of activities below this. Here, Cisco Catalyst Center. Someone created a custom category here. There's almost 700, I think, activities listed there. We have some folderization coming. It was just released. It'll start grouping those easier. But you can do the search up here. And so I'm just going to go up here and do the search. And if I know what the API is, and I don't have an activity that's pre-built for it already, I do have generic API activities. So I just came over here and I typed in generic, and you see under all the different adapter types, I have generic activities. And since I'm working Meraki right here, I'm just going to grab the Meraki one and drag that out here. But the advantage of this one is workflows take care of all the authentication for you. So if I scroll down the right-hand side over here, I see the only thing I need to provide now is what's the URL, what the method, and if I'm going to do a put or a post, for example, what the body I want to pass it is. But I do have access to my variable reference icon over here. So at any point along the way, especially working with Meraki, for example, you often have to pass in either an organization ID or a network ID as part of the URL. I can type in part of the URL, v1, whatever it is. And then if I need to map in a variable like my organization ID, I map in my organization ID, and I can continue on mapping through whatever URL parts I need to. And if I need to map in a network ID later on into the path, again, I come back up here. Well, I don't have my network ID yet because that's going to come out of my activities. But that would like right here, activities, where I'm going to get the network ID. And my output of that is network ID. So it makes it super easy to use any API. So yeah, if I don't know what the API is, I'll do some research on there to see if the API exists, or if I'm not familiar with what the parameters are. but workflows makes it very easy to utilize all the different APIs. So we started here with, I need to get my network ID. So I provided my input over here, my organization ID. And the second piece here is the network name. And again, that was declared as a workflow input variable. So input variable here, network name. So I'm mapping the workflow input into that particular activity. All my inputs have been satisfied. I come up here and validate. And that just means I've double checking here the workflows that, hey, all the required data fields have a data field associated with or value associated with it. And then best practice here, I'm going to run my workflows. I'm building it to test as I go along. And again, I defaulted my values in here, so I don't have to manually enter them, but I could override those if I wanted to. But I'm just going to run this right now. And fingers crossed, everything goes green. I get my network ID back. So blue, that step is in progress. So that's actually a workflow. And I can drill into that workflow if I wanted to. View child workflow. Here's what that single block I drove out here. It has all these different steps in it where it retrieves my network ID. And I can go in here and look at the logic and see examples of how the designer created this workflow. And I can look at how they, the inputs and outputs of any step along the way if I need to for debugging purposes. But for our purposes right here, we're just going to say, hey, did we get a network ID back? I'm going to click on here, look down at my result. Hey, I got all this JSON objects back, including this ID value right here that I need. So we're going to go back and start modifying our workflow. So we have our network ID. So the next thing we need to do now, for this use case, the customer said they had to go through and reboot all the access points on their network. So in this case, they had, I think it was 18 or so different access points, but that was a time-consuming process for them to go through, identify the access point, either go through the dashboard and do that, or try to do it programmatically using the API. And I said, well, that's a really simple, repetitive task, great for workflows. So the next step after we have our network ID is to get the devices. So we're going to use our get organization inventory devices. And again, look that one up if you need to, but I know that that's a useful API call I use quite regularly. So I drag that out into my canvas. I'm going to place it after my get network ID step. Coming over to my input fields again, my organization ID, I provide as a variable, so I can put that in here. Scrolling down through all the rest of these are all the rest of the inputs that are possible for that particular API call. One thing, the network ID. Well, I'm looking here, this is going to require an array, but I know that the field that comes back from that previous activity is just a single network ID. So I'm going to actually put that here inside the square brackets inside of quotes to make it an array element. And I'm going to map in the output of the previous activity where I got the network ID by the name. So I scroll down to the outputs from that activity, that workflow. Here's network ID, boom, passing that in. Now, the other thing I want to do, since I just wanted to work with the access points from this network, I don't need all the devices that come back. So I can come down here to product types. And if I'm not familiar with what needs to go in here, oops, again, this is looking for an array object. I can come up here, get some help text here. So I can say, oh, one item here is wireless. So I can just grab the wireless, pop that in there. I don't need the comma. So now I should get back just the wireless devices from that particular network that I'm interested in. And I've met all my input values, do a quick validation here. Again, I'm going to test this as I go along. I can overwrite my default values here if I need to, but let's run this again. And hopefully now everything goes green, and I'm going to get back a list of just the access points, the wireless device types from the network that I provide the name to when I started the workflow. So I'm going to click on my activity right here, scrolling down. Here I see I have an MR36, and here's another MR36. So great, I got back 2 access points. Now this really small network here only has 2 access points. In this case, the customer had at least 18 or so different access points they need to go through and do the reboot for. Okay, so we have our list of devices now that we need to reboot. So the option to them to reboot those, let me go back into modify. I'll go up here and search. Here's reboot devices. Drag that out here. Well, I'm looking at this particular activity. The input for that is a serial number. But that's a single serial number. And I've got an array of devices. So I need to break that down and get out the individual devices. So I'm just going to let's just skip this one for right now. Okay, so I need to figure out how can I get the individual devices out? Well, And then I'm going to have to loop through those devices to utilize that particular activity. So the great thing about workflows is we have a activity here called the tables. So I'm going to grab a table here, and I'm going to read a table from JSON. I'm going to drag that out here. I'm going to scroll down the right-hand side. So the first thing I'll start with is my source JSON, which is the output where I got the organization inventory devices. So I'm going to say take the raw result of that previous step. And I'm going to look at the JSON path. And I happen to know, oops, let's see here, $.star, that's an array of devices. And I'm going to make this a persistent table because I'm going to utilize the output from this table. And the columns I need to read here is just the serial number. And that should validate everything. And let's just make sure we got everything now and run. And again, we run. And since I'm skipping this last activity here, that the reboot device is currently, I don't have to provide inputs for that one. So here we read in the body of all of the JSON objects. So we got all this JSON data right here, but all we're interested in is just the serial number. So that's this field right here, serial. And so you can see here the read table from JSON response is showing the 2 serial numbers right there. Again, we took the array data, looking for the serial number. And if I scroll a little bit further down here, I should see here's my table. So I have 2 serial numbers now in my array. So I can scroll back up, back to modify. So now I have the serial numbers I need to then feed into my reboot device. So I need to use that for a loop. And we make loops super easy here with workflows. I'm going to drag a for each loop out here, drop it right in here. And the only thing I have to provide for this for each loop is the source array I'm going to utilize. So for each access point, my source array, of course, is I read the information from the JSON into a table, and that creates an array for me. I can drop that in there. Now I'm going to drag my reboot activity right up here. We're going to turn it back on. And again, the only input I have to provide for that is the serial number. So again, my variable reference icon over here, going back here, we're looking for activities. We're looking for our for each loop, where we had a source array that came in, and there's only a single item in that table. But if I had multiple items in that table, I'd have all the different columns available for me. Here, I just have the single serial column available. So I'm just going to select that. So that's going to grab the serial number for each iteration and then pass it in as the input for that particular activity. So now I can validate this. I can run. Here again, providing my default inputs. I can override those if I need to. We retrieve the network ID. We then get the inventory of network devices filtered by type of wireless. We read all those serial numbers into that table. We feed that array of serial numbers into our for each loop, where we're calling every single iteration for the reboot device. And again, I can look down here for this iteration. This is the serial number that was passed into this particular activity. And I can look at the inputs and outputs of that activity, scrolling down right here. And I can then look at multiple iterations. So I can look at the second iteration, see the serial number that was provided for that iteration, look at the inputs and outputs there. So now I've run that workflow. I've actually rebooted all of the access points on that particular network. So that took me, a few minutes. That took the customer that's trying to do that manually or using APIs several minutes to do. So now I've got a reusable workflow here. This could be enhanced with additional conditionals to check and make sure I actually got a network ID, that I have an access point that came back from that particular network. But this gives you a quick overview of how quick and simple it is to drag and drop, create a new workflow. Maybe pause here for any questions.
Yeah, actually, I was going to pause you just before you hit that button. So I don't know if you just may have to rewind it and look, but he hit a button that was, I believe, said modify, right? So when you ran that, it actually goes into kind of a different mode. So you can't, like now, if you click on one of those boxes, you can make changes to the variables and that kind of stuff, right? When you ran it, then when you click in the boxes, you see the output of the boxes, right?
Inputs and outputs, yes. So this is the editor view where I'm normally in. And when I run a workflow, it takes me to the run details view. Now I can go back to previous iterations right here by saying view runs. And I can see, look, I actually ran this several times as I was testing it out. I can go back and look at any iteration, and I see who ran it, when they ran it. I can look at any iteration here, see what they provide as input variables, and then see all the details for the inputs and outputs of that particular workflow at that run.
Okay.
So here we are back to that previous view.
If I go back to that run, Like let's say I made a modification and I didn't want to keep that modification, but I don't remember what modification I made. Am I able to go back to a previous run and then keep that modification, or like use one without the modification before I made the modification?
It's going to take you to the current version of the workflow when you go back to modify.
Oh, okay. All right.
It doesn't. It stores the runtime data, but it doesn't actually save that version of the workflow. Versioning is one of our roadmap items. It'll take you to the current version of that workflow.
Okay.
But you'll be able to see what the content
Okay.
of the workflow looked like, so you can actually do a side-by-side comparison of those if you wanted to.
Hey, Ed, we have a question around for this particular workflow. Let's say you swap out APs, or there's different APs in the network. They're either added or subtracted. How easy is that to change or update?
Well, this is all running with the real-time inventory from that particular network, so there's nothing changed here. I didn't hard code, the AP access anywhere into this particular workflow.
Got it.
It's gonna this right here where it gets organization inventory devices. It reads the real-time inventory for that network, again filtered by type wireless. So it's going to give me back all the wireless access points for that particular network.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is one way of doing it. Let me jump back into the workspace, and that was quick. It was easy, but kind of tedious to click and drag and drop here. But I thought you said there was an easy way to do this, and actually, this is what the exciting thing we're coming out with right now. It's like, let's talk to our AI assistant right here, and let's ask it to just build what I just built. And I'm just going to give it a generic prompt right here, saying, generate a workflow that reboots all the access points in a Meraki network. And it's going to take think about this for a second and go through its process of discovering what's available to it and try to interpret my intent, because I didn't give it a whole lot of detail there. I just say reboot access points in a Meraki network. So it's going to try to figure out my best intent here, and it's going to put together a plan for a workflow. And so just like I would do if I was going to create a workflow, I'd kind of scope out which APIs I wanted to call, the ordering to call them in, and put a plan together, and then begin clicking and dragging it out there. Workflows generates the same thing. It creates a workflow plan for me, and then I can iterate through that plan with the assistant here. I can say, oh, hey, modify this step, change this step, add this step, remove this step. Okay, here it is. It's done. Let's take a look at what it came up with for a workflow to reboot access points.
Wow.
Okay, it recognized it needs to get an organization ID. So it's going to say, most likely humans like to use things by name. So I'm going to use the workflow that interprets a name and gives me back the organization ID. And then it stores the information into a variable. In this case here, it's going to list all the networks. And then it's going to identify a target network ID. So some things I would do a little differently. I'd use that one workflow I did was provide it with the network name and then get back the network ID. Then it's going to list the wireless devices in here. So this one's actually doing good. It's grabbing the product by type wireless. Depending upon which iteration you are with the AI assistant here, sometimes it just grabs things by type of MR, which will only use the Meraki access points and not the new Cisco access points that can be managed in the Meraki dashboard. And then it's going to reboot the access point and verify success. But I don't see any error checking in here. And some of that stuff is not quite the way I would do it. So actually, let's try a new chat. Let's ask it to do the same thing again. But this time, I'm going to give it a more detailed prompt. Oops. If I can get it working for me here. There we go. There we go. So here's a more detailed prompt, and reformat it once it went into that. But you can see I'm giving it a little bit more detail here. Let me see if I can bring this over from the other screen while it's thinking about its talk here. So I went through a more detailed. I described some of the workflows that I know exist in the system, some of the APIs that exist in the system for Atomics. Let's make sure it's not waiting for me. Yep. And then the logic that I would follow if I was going to build this workflow. I'm going to say use the provided Meraki organization name to get the ID. Put a condition block in there to check for success. Same thing. Use the network name to get network ID. Use a condition block, check for success. Retrieve all the access points using that Atomic. Use the network IDs from previous retrieved. Use the product type set to wireless, and again a condition block here to check for success. Adding that robustness into this workflow. And I say read it into a table. Use my for each loop. and then generate a report at the end that gives me all the information about how many access points there were, and any failures, things like that. So a more detailed prompt. And so this time we see a more detailed plan was generated. It's going to retrieve the organization ID from the name, validate it. So again, that logic, that checking in there. And then we're going to get the network ID, validate that. We're going to retrieve the wireless access points of type wireless. We're going to make sure we get back access points. We're going to parse those into our table. We're going to initialize our tracking, and then we're going to loop through that stuff. So it says if we'd like to do this, we can refine the plan, or we can generate a workflow. Let's generate the workflow. So now it's going to take that plan and actually create the JSON workflow file for me. And then I'll be able to import that into my workspace and then run that workflow. So again, the amount of time it took me the first time to click and drag all those different activities onto the canvas, start mapping variables into here, I could describe my intent to the AI assistant and have it generate all that. In this case, you can see a much more robust workflow with full error checking and a nice report at the end. It probably in less time that it took me to build that first simple workflow that achieves the same result.
Yeah. Now, and the other thing that's nice is you're in workflows on a regular basis. So when you're talking about arrays and JSON path queries and all that kind of stuff, that's sort of part of your normal language. If I'm an RF engineer or something like that, I'm coming in here but I want to automate a task. This allows me to maybe at least get 95% of the way there, where I can read it and then maybe make modifications or something like that, right? So
yes.
I don't necessarily have to learn everything there's to know about JSON or something like that to do this. Now, the more you know, the better, right?
Yeah, JSON is really helpful because of all the API calls that come back in a JSON format. So having a JSON knowledge is helpful, but that visual editor of workflows, it shows you the logic of the workflow. And so now it's generated the workflow, it's thrown into my environment right here. So I'm going to click on that link. I'm just going to close the AI assistant window to actually see what it created for me. Okay, imported, close. So again, that visual representation of the logic of that workflow. So I may have to zoom in a little bit right here, but it gets the organization ID, stores it locally, and starts that error checking. So a condition block right here. And the great thing about workflows is there's no special code or syntax to learn. So here, the organization found that condition was check that an organization ID is not equal to empty. There's no special syntax to learn for this. That's pretty easy to follow this stuff. And if I need to modify this, I can select my variables, change my comparisons without, making sure that I've got the proper syntax defined. Once it gets my network ID, validates that, it comes down here, it gets our access points, it parses those into a table. It's defaulting to Python here to do a count. You could do that with variables, but I'm not going to nitpick the AI assistant right here. Then it's going to reboot the AP, keep track of which ones it failed, and let's give this a run. So I'm going to select my current organization for my target. Again, if I had to, my pull down type is select on runtime like this one is, I've got a bunch of different Meraki targets I can choose from. I'm going to go with my current organization. Oops, get the name correctly. And then the current name of the network. I'm going to run that one. And again, it's going to resolve the IDs for me and then run through everything and give me the detailed report at the end. So now it's going through, counting the access points. It's into our loop where it's rebooting access points. And again, I can look at all the inputs and outputs of any particular step along the way. So this particular activity, here's our access points it retrieved. And at the top up here, we see success. I'm going to scroll down all the way to the variables right here. And here's our report at the end. So this one actually says it failed to reboot 2 devices. Actually, those access points are just placeholder serial numbers for me. They are not real devices. So when I make the call to it, it's going to succeed, but it's not actually going to succeed on rebooting the device. But let's try a different network. So I mentioned before that we can do this across multiple organizations. So I'm going to select a different organization, give it a different name. And this one actually has a real device on it. Plus, this gives me a chance to plug my session at Cisco Live here. So Cisco U1062. So come out to Vegas and catch that one live. We're going to be talking all about using webhooks and workflow similar to what we talked about in the last episode here. So
Nice.
now it's actually running through, again, a completely different Meraki organization, but my API key has access to that one. In this case right here, it did find the access point, reboot the access point. I see reboot successful. And if I go down to my report at the end, and I could have had this report emailed out to me, dropped into a WebEx message or a Slack message right here. So in this case, it found an access point, it rebooted it successfully. So if I had dozens of access points in a network I need to reboot, in a couple of minutes here with the AI assistant, it generated a robust workflow for me that does that for me programmatically. So that's, manually building a workflow, AI assistant building a workflow,
Wow.
and it's super fun, super easy to play with.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful, the power of the AI assistant, and then leveraging the power of the workflows too. That's pretty cool. We do have a question here, Ed, that came in via the YouTube chat. Am I able to generate workflows via API?
Yes, but not quite yet. So let me jump back into this right here. So the first thing is, goodness, sorry about that. My reminder is still on. If you want to get access to AI generated workflows right now, that is in beta. We just launched it. You can scan the QR code, take you to the form here to get the request filled out to access AI generated workflows. And then we have some really exciting stuff coming out with the new Meraki workflow API calls. And eventually you'll be able to generate that stuff using an API to the MCP server. But right now, that stuff is kind of limited.
Okay.
We do have a workflow in our exchange, and I may have to jump back to that just a second, that does some cool things with workflow generation. A couple things here to mention. Again, after this, if you have questions about workflows, join the Cisco Workflows community at community.cisco.com. There's also a workflows channel on YouTube with videos in there, and we just launched a new playlist in there for workflows for AI generation. So really cool. Check that stuff out. We have a bunch of stuff in the Cisco Live on-demand library from previous Cisco Lives. So go in there, check those sessions out. And I also want to hype up, Las Vegas is coming up here. I think we're less than 50 days away. A boatload of sessions that are coming up there in Vegas. So come out, catch all those live. And with that, let me jump back into my workspace really quick and mention one other thing. This was a workflow we added to the Exchange relatively recently. So if you're interested in reviewing those workflows that you've currently built, one of our things we added here was this automated workflow review. So this is actually a workflow that will run, and first thing it does is it downloads your workflow, because you can export a workflow as a JSON file. It downloads the current version of a checklist we have in our GitHub repository for proper formatting of a workflow, sends that information out to an AI assistant of analysis, and gives you back a report on the completeness of your workflow. And let you know if it's a good recommendation to run this before you actually make a submission to the Exchange, if you wanted to submit one of your workflows to the Exchange. But that's super cool because it extracts your workflow as a JSON object. And it's making API calls to the workflows API to get the current workflow JSON file. So eventually we're going to be coming out with the APIs related to make the call to the MCP server to talk about generating a workflow that way. But right now you can generate the workflow through the AI assistant in Meraki dashboard.
It's just fascinating to watch how fast this stuff is getting developed and moving forward.
Yeah, the cool thing is, workflows just went general availability back in October of last year. Yeah. And last month, we actually had our 1 millionth workflow run. So the demand for this has just been incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The amount of development, the amount of use, the amount of information. I mean, it's amazing how fast this is growing.
Yeah. Yeah, and if people have interesting use cases, we're always looking for interesting use cases that we can take, build, and make available into that Workflows Exchange catalog. So yeah, please let us know what your use cases are. Reach out to us on the Workflows community.
And one of the things I noticed, like some of these workflows, if you will, that are on these, they actually consist of multiple workflows, right? Like if you say, hey, I want this workflow in this community, you open it up, you get a whole suite of capability that you just unlocked, right?
Yes. And the great thing about this is these workflows aren't take it or leave it. If it's 80% of what you need, it's a great starting point. Reuse that existing logic, install into your workspace, open up in the editor. Anything in your workspace, you can open the editor and modify and customize.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know, Ed, on the AI assistant, if you let's say you started You'll know why I'm asking this question because we actually had this discussion ahead of time. Let's say you started a workflow and then had a problem like debugging it, right? Can you use AI assistant to help you debug something maybe you started, or does it have to start from
Yes,
scratch?
you can. So we're working on making the AI assistant, available inside the editor, so you can kind of talk in real time to it. But what you can do, since the AI assistant knows about the workflows in your workspace, and I forget what the name of this one was. Okay, this is the Meraki Network AP reboot workflow. So let me go in here. So I can, ask us to say, review the Meraki AP reboot workflow. And so, if we're playing around with this before, we were pulling workflows in and asking the AI assistant to review the workflow and then generate a workflow that undid the configurations that workflow did. And actually generated a workflow that would undo those configuration work. So kind of like, I can write the first workflow that makes the configuration setting, and I can have the AI assistant analyze that workflow and generate the workflow that undoes that configuration setting. And then I can start linking those things together in a parent workflow. Okay, parent workflow makes this call to do the configuration. If that fails, then call this other workflow to undo the configuration.
What a great way to help you even learn workflows, right? So now you can just ask it to kind of help you debug. It's like having Ed in your computer.
Yeah, I think this is
maybe
going
not
to
that
ask me
good.
to actually run the workflow. Sometimes, so now it's actually me to run the workflow, because I didn't say to generate a workflow. You probably need to put the keyword in there. Analyze this and generate an optimized workflow, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, you can feed it in a workflow name to put that into the context of the workflow. And I don't know if you saw that with my prompt I put into it. I told it up here at the top, review these workflows, and I gave it the workflow names up here at the top. So again, providing more context into the system helps give that more detailed result back out.
Right.
We have one more question here. It looks like that just came in during the discussion, Ed. Do we have access to the MCPs for Meraki, or is that still something internal?
I think that's still something internal, but there is plans on making that available.
Okay.
I mean, there's an unofficial version that's out on GitHub. I think everybody probably knows that. So if you want to start with something, there is something there, but it's not an official version.
And the other thing I should mention is, you can embed AI activities inside of your workflows. And we do have a new agent thing we're going to be putting as an activity you can place inside a workflow as well. So lots of super exciting AI integrations coming out.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, this was very useful.
Well, I think I ran over, so I apologize for going long here, but thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Great
No, this has
information.
been great.
Appreciate, again, thank you, Ed, for your time. It's such a privilege to have you. Appreciate all you're doing with the workflows and all the activities you've been pushing forward on that, and all the training and et cetera, et cetera. So it's great work. Great stuff.
Yeah, and so for the audience out listening, hey, everybody come to Vegas, stop by and say hello.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, thanks, Ed, so much. Awesome to have you on here. Really huge value to all this, and really appreciate your time. Come see Ed out in Vegas. Bring your questions. Come see us Unplugged out in Vegas at our session. I didn't mention this at the beginning either, but we are also going to be doing a typical Unplugged show out in Vegas too, where we cover the highlights of Cisco live as well, like we typically do. So be sure to, again, go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@getunplugged, and subscribe. You'll be notified when we do go live with content like that. But I think we're good on questions. Again, thanks, Ed. Appreciate your time. And as a reminder, we do have our schedule published for upcoming episodes. You can go out to the YouTube channel and see that below. It's the first link down below the header bar. And also go check out our session at live. You can see that as well on the screen, what that is, where it's going to be. And like Ed mentioned, we'd love to get your feedback, maybe whether it's for use cases of workflows, whether it's for new topics for the show, whether you want to come on, talk to us about your use cases, reach out to us. You can email us directly at the show, getunplugged@cisco.com. You can reach us on Twitter X at Unplugged80211 or Threads, Unplugged Connectivity. You can always get a hold of us through your account team as well. Your account team knows how to get a hold of us, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much, Ed. Thanks, Al. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, stay connected and unplugged.